The 2016 presidential election could determine the makeup of the Supreme Court. How Americans vote will likely impact the protection of life, religious liberty, and the right to bear arms.
We have had many decisions that have been decided on a 5-4 basis where we have barely escaped with our religious liberty and Second Amendment rights intact. And if we appoint the wrong justice to the Supreme Court, it could absolutely put those very important fundamental rights at risk.
Attorney Cherie Langenstein represents clients in religious liberty cases and defends the Second Amendment. She says Republicans in the U.S. Senate must stand firm and not allow President Obama to appoint a liberal to the High Court to replace the late Justice Antonin Scalia.
The Constitution says that it's the role of the Senate to give advice and consent to any nominee that the president puts forward. My recommendation for the Republican-controlled Senate is that they advise the president that he only nominate an originalist who will uphold those key principles, and that they only give their consent if he in fact does nominate someone who will uphold those principles of the Constitution. And if the president doesn't nominate someone who is appropriate, then it's absolutely the role of the Senate to withhold their consent.
Meantime, Dr. Anthony Levantino, who claims to have committed more than 1,200 abortions before becoming pro-life more than 2 decades ago, notes that the Supreme Court has frequently stymied efforts to curb abortions.
A lot of existing Supreme Court decisions have really kind of tied our hands.
Dr. Levantino points out that in addition to a replacement for Justice Scalia, the next president will likely shape the direction of the High Court for years to come.
It makes me disheartened to see people who really are pro-life in their heart, but then when it comes to voting, they don't even think twice about voting for somebody who supports abortion rights. This is a critical election. The next president is very likely to pick up to 3 Supreme Court justices. And as I said earlier, that's going to, if we end up with a progressive or liberal politician in the White House, we're going to be strapped with pro-abort Supreme Court justices for another generation.
So when people go into that voting booth, they better know in advance where the candidate stands on life.
Absolutely. No question about it.
You can be an informed voter and keep up with the 2016 election from a Christian perspective by visiting IllinoisFamilyAction.org. I'm Monty Larrick.